I joined the Navy to be close to the ocean, to be in foreign places, to travel. I really wanted to see the world. That was part of my dream.
Tell me about being a man of God amongst a bunch of Marine Corps soldiers of war.
That's an important step for a lot of chaplains. A lot of clergymen come into the military, and none of us. I mean, I've listened to you've listened to veterans, and one thing that you'll discover if you listen to veterans, people who have really been there, they don't like war. War is a last resort for people who really know what it's about. We're not conscientious objectors. We know that there are times when you have to exercise force against evil. What you will discover is that by and large, the people in the military, by and large, are people who are extraordinarily responsible. You are a part of the honored community. You are honored to be a part of the community. But let me tell you a story, the closest I came to a conflict. And I mean, it's one of the sad moments in the recent history of our nation, of our military nation. Before I went to Bahrain, in the Persian Gulf, Bahrain is a small, tiny island, an emirate. It has an emir who is the ruler of it, a Muslim country. But when I went, the year before I went there, an Iraqi jet, who was supposed to be part of some of our allies, fired missiles into one of our ships called the USS Stark. 37 sailors were killed. But my predecessor, the chaplain who was there before, did a marvelous job of caring for the families and caring for everyone who's traumatized by this unexpected quasi-act of war in which people died. Well, I got there after that, July 3rd, 1988. Periodically, different ships would come into the Gulf, and one of my jobs was to go aboard and talk to them and explain to them about Muslim culture. We wanted them to be good citizens. We wanted them to understand enough of the culture that they didn't make mistakes, because these places are so different. Our country is different. Every place is different. It has its own culture. One of the ships that came in was the USS Vincennes, and the Vincennes was the first of a major class of new fighting ship. High technology. It was an over-the-horizon kind of warcraft. A very high-powered ship. Some people tell me that it probably should never have been in the Gulf. And soon after it came in, an airplane, a commercial civilian aircraft, took off from a runway, airport in Iran, and flew out over the Gulf. There was this sense that something could happen to our ships. Our ships were in ready because something bad had happened, and they knew that they were in a place of jeopardy. This airfield that they came out was an airfield that served both military and commercial aircraft. A military plane would take off and it'd be followed by a commercial aircraft. So that complicates what you see. But anyway, this aircraft came in a different kind of trajectory. And the Vincennes overreacted, and they shot it down. 290 people were killed aboard that, 66 children, and it was just a horrific scene. I got a call late that night from the Admiral, and he said, "Sid, I want you to be at the pier before dawn tomorrow morning. I want you to take a tug out to the ship, and I want you to go aboard and see what you can do with these men." Was up well before dawn, and I got on a tug, and we went out through fog to the side of the ship, got up, and we spent about, I think it was 36 hours there talking to individuals. This is how war traumatizes people. The things the men said to me were heartbreaking. They knew what they had done. I mean, politically, you know how things happen back in the political sense. They put different faces on things. They give, it was not ambiguous for these men who saw what had happened. One of the men sat there and he looked at me and he was just shaking. He said, "Chaplain, I don't know how this happened." Then he said, I've got kids back at home. And so he's trying to work through something that he knew was horrific and wrong. He said, how do I live with this? How do I live with this? And we talked. And I asked him, I said, you know, I can't tell you the nature of the things that we said, it just would take too long. But I saw him a couple of years later, and he said, he came up to me, we went out for a cup of coffee, and he said, you know, Chaplain, this is what you told me that gave me a measure of peace in an impossible situation. I went home to the synagogue, and I was in worship, and my father used the same words you used to give me a measure of peace. This is what we do. This is what a chaplain does. But that's the way the military responds to crisis, as quickly as they can with the resources that they have. If it's a chaplain's job, they put a chaplain there. If it's a doctor's job, they put a doctor there. If it's a supply officer's job, they put a supply officer there. That way of being part of a community is probably what anybody who's been in the military for any length of time treasures.